Taylor's in the snow. Okay. This is going to be some more way to go to class, Taylor.
Oh, there is, but I'm trying to bust the ice off the pond so my livestock can get a drink.
Oh boy. Oh man.
Ice is about 2 inches thick on my pond, and they can't get through it.
Yeah, I don't blame him. Our dog, Nathan said the dog got out and was walking across ice and he could hear it cracking under him and he didn't know what to do with that.
Oh, want to get out here and fall through it, and they can't get out.
Yes, sir.
Well, hello everyone. Good morning. How y'all doing?
Good morning. How you doing, Mario?
Good morning, my brother. Hello, beyond blessed. How about you?
Doing well.
Good, good, brother. Hello, brother Hampton. How you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
Way too blessed, brother. I'm good. I'm good, brother.
Very good.
Ready to learn.
Well, this is an interesting chapter. It's one that we've heard about, but may not have talked enough about in days gone by. I don't know. What's the problem?
Oh, you got it. See if you get it locked up.
Yeah.
We can go full screen.
All right. We are in Daniel chapter 8. Let's start with, does anybody have any questions? Any comments, thoughts, something that you've stumbled upon and maybe in your studies? I do that every now and then.
One thing I have thought interesting is, we call him by Daniel, but then we call the other three by their new names
Yeah.
most of the time. And I don't
Yeah.
know why. It's just something I thought interesting.
Yeah. Yes, I've seen the same thing. And I know that's true. In fact, if you were to get up and say Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, they people go, huh? Who are you talking about? Yeah. But if you say Daniel, they immediately know. And on the other hand, if you say Belteshazzar, they don't know who that is. So, so, so it goes both ways, and I know what you're talking about. Very, very much so. We are like some of you. We're in the middle of a pretty good cold snap. I do not anticipate losing power. We got a generator here, but I don't know what that'll do to the internet. So if I go off, I'll do my best to get back on. But that's all I can tell you. I'm as little as I know about the internet and things technical. I've just told you more than I know. Yeah. So we'll kind of go from there. I have, I love teaching so much. I just usually jump into these lessons, and I happen to know, although he said nothing, I happen to know that is somewhat of a frustration to Chip. He'd like us to start with a prayer. So, Chip, we're going to let you do that today. How about that?
Sounds good. Thank you, Lord, so much for taking care of us, for getting us here today. Please be with those affected by this big winter storm here in the South. Help everybody get all of their things back in order and get heat back on and power back on. Please be with the folks that don't have it. Thank you for allowing us to be part of the people that do have power, God. Please be with Gary today as he leads this wonderful class. Help him to be the conduit for you, Lord. Thank you so much for your generosity and your never changing and for just being solid, someone that we can depend on. We thank you for being who you are, Lord. Thank you so much for this class and this school and all of these students and our teachers and faculty. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. All right, we are in chapter 5. We just finished with Nebuchadnezzar. We really don't know exactly how long forward this is, or not to my knowledge. We do give you some dates here that are possibles. Nebuchadnezzar did die in 562 BC. His son, Evil Marduk, who probably, by the way, ruled while he was in his mental confusion state, his insanity, if you would. He took over the rule after the death of his dad, 562 to 560. He was then assassinated and replaced by Nebuchadnezzar's son-in-law, who reigned until his death in 556. Another reigned for 9 months and was replaced by Nabonidus, who is the father of Belshazzar. And we're going to be really talking about Belshazzar. This chapter, then, we think takes place in 539 BC. I say think, we're pretty confident because historically we know when Persia, Medio Persian Empire, conquered Babylon. So those are the dates to the best of our ability that we know. Belshazzar, literally in his language, that would be Bel, protect the king. That's according to Young in his commentary. As I think I've told you, that's though Young was not one of our brethren, he is a good commentator on the book of Daniel. If you can find that book, it's listed in the bibliography for this class, and grab it. But don't spend a fortune on it. I'll tell you what, I'd recommend that you all go somewhere, and I'm going to name one name, but I don't have any stock in this business, and nor do I have a great deal of knowledge. But thrift books might have that book, or they might be able to get it for you if you kind of put in hey, this is something I want. They might tell you, hey, we finally got it. And again, don't pay a fortune, but $10 or less if it's in decent shape would be good. 15 probably what it would cost today if you found it. I don't know. I haven't looked. It may be in print again, as far as that goes. A Persian verse account explicitly states that Nabonidus entrusted the kingship to his son Belshazzar while he undertook a distant campaign. There were a number of things like oaths and tribute money that were done in the name of both Nabonidus and Belshazzar. So Young posited a co-regency in which Belshazzar was subordinate. And notice I said posited. You remember what I said? I throw up flags. Okay, I don't know this for sure. This is that kind of thing. Young is saying, well, maybe, and when they refer to these tribute monies and receipts that are in both names, those are archaeological discoveries. And so we know for a fact that stuff was there, that it did happen that way. The question is why? Why is it listed in that fashion? And I don't have a good answer. I'll let Young do his positing, and I think that's a pretty good guess, on that part. We'll talk more about that probably toward the end of the chapter as well. So let's begin with verse 1. of Daniel chapter 5. Belshazzar the king made a great feast for 1,000 of his lords, and drank wine in the presence of the 1,000. While he tasted the wine, Belshazzar gave the command to bring the gold and silver vessels which his father Nebuchadnezzar had taken from the temple, which had been in Jerusalem, that the king and his lords, his wives, and his concubines might drink from them. Then they brought the gold vessels that had been taken from the temple of the house of God, which had been in Jerusalem. And the king and his lords, his wives, and his concubines drank from them. They drank wine and praised the gods of gold and silver, bronze and iron, wood and stone. All right. The king sat in front of his guests at an elevated table drinking wine. Now, Proverbs 20 might give us a brief glimpse into something we should consider here, particularly in verse 1. Notice what the wise man has to say, usually to his son, I might add. Wine is a mocker, strong drink is a brawler, and whoever is led astray by it is not wise. That is a pretty good verse to describe exactly what Belshazzar is doing. He has allowed the wine to go to his head. He's not making good judgments because of that wine. And that is a warning, I would say, to anybody today in reference to drinking alcohol. Alcohol will take away your good thinking abilities. It emboldens you. There are people that drink that think they can do things they never could do before, and of course they can't. But they act like they can. They think they can. It slows down your reflexes. So, if you're driving a vehicle, that's a dangerous thing, to have. I suppose if you went to war that way, it would also be dangerous, because reflexes play such a role in war as well. So, stay away from it. That's good advice from the wise man. Under the influence of the wine, Driver, by the way, is quoted by Young, and he showed the disrespect for the temple vessels. The wickedness lay in this, that they drank out of the holy vessels of the temple of the God of Israel to glorify their heathen gods in songs of praise. Now that last was from Kyle in the commentaries by Kyle and Delitzsch. So we got a problem here because they are making a mockery of God by using God's implements from the temple in service to false gods. That's the way this starts out in the capital city of Babylon. All right, so look at the beginning of verse 5. In the same hour, the fingers of a man's hand appeared and wrote opposite the lampstand on the plaster of the wall of the king's palace. All right, in the InterVarsity Press Bible Background Commentary on the Old Testament, we have this record. A lifeless, detached hand would have suggested a defeated enemy. Casualty counts were made by cutting off the right hands of all the dead. By drinking from the vessels, the Babylonians were recalling the defeat of Yahweh. That's the God of Israel, of course. But this is no lifeless, severed hand of a dead God at all. It is quite animated and has a message to give. The effect might be similar if the head of a decapitated victim began to speak. Are you all following what's going on here? So when you're winning a battle in those days, you prove to your commander or to the king that we killed 1,000 men. How do you know? Well, here, count their hands. Right hand. So they got 1,000 right hands. That's how many men you killed. Uh, I'm amazed sometimes because I follow the news so carefully at how both sides in a war now uh, they have different counts for how many are killed. You ever notice that? The right now Russia and Ukraine are at war, of course. So Russia will say, "Well, we've only lost 5 men," and Ukraine will say, "We killed 10." So it's like, okay, who's telling the truth? Well, I don't know. Where's cut their hands off. We'll count them. We'll find out. All right, yeah, Chip.
Would you kind of talk about verse 4 because it's interesting, we just got done working on this Kingdom of God presentation and we're seeing, the mentions of all these materials and these, I guess, empires again.
Yeah,
Would that be a fair assumption?
uh, these are yes, they're gods. It's interesting because in these kingdoms, like Babylon, their gods were made of various materials that they had available to them. And so it lists them, as you said, gold, silver, bronze, iron, wood, and stone. So you can almost imagine all these images up in front of us. And by the way, a wood image may sound like the wood's cheap, but the image could be beautiful if somebody with artistic ability, not me, but somebody with artistic ability were to form that thing. It could be a beautiful thing, but they're false gods. And yeah, Chip, your point is well taken. And this isn't this odd. What their view is, and you got to think about it as a polytheist. Their view is that the God of Israel, or in this case Judah, was defeated by Nebuchadnezzar. And so they drink from the vessels from his temple as a demonstration that our gods are more powerful than the God of Judah. And they're about to find out. In fact, they do in the beginning of verse 5. They find out very quickly. He's not as dead as you think he is. You think his right hand's cut off, and he's using his right hand to write you a note. And of course, it's a visual, and you're going to see the reaction of the king. The visual to him was powerful. To us, it's not easily understood unless you put yourself back there and you think like they thought. So very interesting, all the way around. The reaction is particularly interesting. So watch the hand wrote. Uh, and that we found that at the end. He wrote on the plaster on the wall. This isn't a private deal. You know, Belshazzar is not seeing it written on the napkin in front of him or something like that. No, this is up on the wall so everybody can see it. Everybody in the assembly place would see what's going on here. Then the king's countenance changed, and his thoughts troubled him, so that the joints of his hips were loosened and his knees knocked against each other. The king cried aloud to bring in the astrologers, the Chaldeans, and the soothsayers. The king spoke, saying to the wise men of Babylon, "Whoever reads this writing and tells me its interpretation shall be clothed with purple and have a chain of gold around his neck, and he shall be the third ruler in the kingdom." Now all the king's wise men came, but they could not read the writing or make known to the king its interpretation. All right, first of all, I want to back up just a little bit. You may remember back in the opening verses that it talked about his father Nebuchadnezzar. We have a tendency, at least in the United States, to think of a father as somebody who whose child we're talking about. They're talking about basically father in terms of the order of rule in the land of Babylon. So he's a father in the kingship, but not truly a father. He's not the great great grandfather of Nebuchadnezzar or of Belshazzar. He's not in that ancestral line, but instead there's been a coup, and he's now in charge. But his father in the kingship would be Nebuchadnezzar. So I didn't mention that earlier, and I thought I'd better pick that up before we went any further. All right, we know a lot about this area from archaeology. The throne room of Babylon was 170 feet by 55 feet, a hall with blue enameled brick covering some of the wall and plaster the rest. And again, that comes from the InterVarsity Press Bible Background Commentary. So I try to always give you notes so you know where to look for these things. Now, do I recommend that book? I will say I recommend it with a little bit of reservation. They will report in that book historical things that are very useful to you. But they also, in that book, will talk about mythology in other countries and things like that. If you start reading it, don't take that part very seriously. I read that book to find the historical facts, archaeological facts, and you'll notice that when I refer to it. And so this is an archaeological fact. It's been uncovered, and we know what it looked like. All right, the king's countenance changed. Well, what does that mean? How about this? He turned pale. You can just about see all the blood go right out of his face, as he sees this going on, because he knows what a right hand by itself. He knows what that means. It means a dead person. He's been thinking of the God of Judah as a dead person. And now that God is writing on the wall. So you can imagine, man, that if that didn't scare you half to death, I don't know what would. And that's exactly the way he reacts. He experienced the normal reaction to fear. And what is that? Well, his hips were loosened. He's wobbly. He's so disturbed that he's wobbly on his feet, and that's kind of the idea there. And his knees knocked against each other. You can just about see him. He's just shaking. As he looks at this thing, he knows he's in trouble, but he doesn't know why. And he doesn't know what. That's why he needs the wise men. So he called for the various wise men and said the one who read the writing would be clothed in purple. That means he's going to be royalty. Okay? He'd be given a necklace, and he'd be given the third position in the kingdom. Now, I think we already talked about this in a previous class, but if Nebuchadnezzar was the king and Belshazzar was his co-regent, then that'd be position 1, position 2. So he's going to put this fella, whoever it is, right there on the throne with them. He's going to be next in order of succession, is the idea. The wise men might well have liked to be rewarded that way, but nobody could figure out what the writing meant. They're baffled. And that's not new. We've seen that before. As we've looked at Nebuchadnezzar twice, in fact. First time is in chapter 2, and the second time in chapter 4. The wise men, from the biblical standpoint, they're not very wise, are they? They don't get it, But that's the way they were labeled in that kingdom. All right. So pick up at verse 9. Then King Belshazzar was greatly troubled. His countenance was changed, and his lords were astonished. Now remember, this writing's on the wall, and all these lords and their wives and the concubines and all, they're all sitting out in this giant hall. I don't know how many people that would have held, a lot, I would think. They're all sitting out there and they're all looking at that thing and their mouths have dropped open. What in the world is this? Is the reaction. The queen, because of the words of the king and his lords, came to the banquet hall. Okay, now, who is the queen? We're not sure. Is this his mother? Could be. Is this the queen from another king? Well, I don't know. I don't have a good answer for that. What I do know about this woman is that she knows the history of Babylon. Now, why does she know it? Well, I don't know. The text doesn't give me that indication. But she does know the history of Babylon. So the queen spoke, saying, O king, live forever. Do not let your thoughts trouble you, nor let your countenance change. There is a man in your kingdom in whom is the spirit of the holy God. That sounds familiar, doesn't it? Isn't that the way that Nebuchadnezzar described Daniel in Daniel chapter 4? Didn't he talk about the spirit of the holy God being in him? In fact, I think you'll find that same reference in chapter 2. So if you're in the habit, again, of writing in your Bible, you might use a Bible program of some sort and just track those words, Spirit of the Holy God, and see where that appears in this book. Because that has been used by Nebuchadnezzar in regard to Daniel before, and the queen knows about it. And in the days of your father, light and understanding and wisdom, like the wisdom of the gods, were found in him. Okay, remember in chapter 2, the wise men said, only a God can answer your question. And remember also that Daniel, representing the God of heaven, not Daniel himself calling himself a God, but representing the God of heaven, Daniel was able to tell the king his dream and the interpretation. That's chapter 2. In chapter 4, he's able to tell him the interpretation of the dream. So he's shown wisdom more than once already. And King Nebuchadnezzar, your father the king, made him chief of the magicians, astrologers, Chaldeans, and soothsayers, inasmuch as an excellent spirit, knowledge, understanding, interpreting dreams, solving riddles, and explaining enigmas were found in this Daniel, whom the king named Belteshazzar. Now let Daniel be called, and he will give the interpretation. You know, I find a number of things here that I think we need to pay attention to. First of all, when God causes someone to be healed or to have wisdom, it is not something that's only known to that person. Modern day faith healers will recount incidents of somebody being healed, but nobody gets to see it. They'll bring a person in front of them, and that person, oh, I have a headache. Well, pardon me, but honestly, if Mario says he's got a headache, the only reason I know he does is because I trust Mario. If I don't know him, if he's just a guy walking up on a stage and he says I've got a headache, my reaction as an old debater who is skeptical about everything, my reaction would be to say, I'm not so sure about that. Because I don't know him. I cannot react to that. When God works a miracle, when Jesus works a miracle, everybody present sees the miracle. You'll notice that fact runs throughout the life of Christ. He works a miracle and they don't deny the miracle. They just try to find a reason that it's not a good thing. For example, well, he did that because he has a demon. Remember? Matthew chapter 12. He's got a demon. He's working by the power of Beelzebub, the prince of the demons. Well, then you already acknowledge that a miracle took place. When the blind man, and I see you, Chip, I'll get to you in just a second. When the blind man in John chapter 9 is healed, the Pharisees don't challenge the healing. When they ask him, is this the guy? And you know, at first, you remember how the neighbors react in John chapter 9? And some of them said, this looks like him, but it's not him. And other people said, no, 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 it's him. And finally, he said, I'm the guy. You know, I was blind, you know, before. And the Pharisees don't challenge that he was blind. Instead, they try to come up with a reason why this was a problem. In that particular case, it's because Jesus healed him on the Sabbath day, and obviously to them that was a violation of the law. Okay. All right, Chip, sorry, held you off.
Good. So the more we read this story, I've got a couple of Genesis studies going, and I'm in Joseph's story right now. There's a lot of similarities between these two stories. Now,
There, go ahead.
what all have you found connection wise? I mean, we've got these men who are obviously God has given them gifts. Like Joseph had, it sounds like he had a very similar gift to Daniel, and to being able to interpret these dreams. Talk a
Yes,
little bit about this because I just started making these connections, and
the biggest thing I think we need to notice, Chip, and everybody else, is that in both cases, and you can find others like that, but in both these cases, Joseph and Daniel, you notice they refuse to accept credit for what they do. They immediately give credit to God, and there's a lesson there, I think, for all of us. Uh, you know, when I am able to do something, if somebody said, if somebody comes up, man, you're a wonderful speaker, then my response is to say, well, thank you, but if I have any ability, it came from God. That's number one. Number two, it doesn't matter whether I'm a good speaker or I'm not. The key is, what does God say? That is the big key that we need to point people who keep driving them toward that idea. Now, what does God say about it? How does God feel about it? You know, because that's what matters. In the long haul, you know, when I die, there are not going to be many people that remember I ever lived. I'm just a man. And Joseph and Daniel both recognize God, and they won't let anybody give them credit for anything. They give it to God. So to me, Chip, that's the biggest takeaway from these two incidents, and they do have some similarities. There's no doubt about that. Likely, this is the Queen Mother, and let's use some biblical references that show that that could be the case. We're going to be talking about other women, of course, but take for example 1 Kings 15. 1 Kings chapter 15, and we're going to look at verse 13 there. And here it says, also he removed Maacah, his grandmother, from being queen mother because she'd made an obscene image of the Asherah. Okay, so queen mother, notice that's the idea there. 2 Kings 10, we'll pick up on a similar usage of that idea. And here it is also in verse 13. And here's what it says here. I'm trying to find where my 13s are. Jehu met with the brothers of Azariah, king of Judah, and said, "Who are you?" So they answered, "We are the brothers of Azariah, and have come down to greet the sons of the king and the sons of the queen mother." So there's that usage of that terminology again. Chapter 24, again, 2 Kings. And you're going to see it again. Chapter 24, and particularly this time it's verse 12. Then Jehoiakim, king of Judah, his mother, his servants, his princes, and his officers went out to the king of Babylon. The king of Babylon, in the 8th year of his reign, took him prisoner. In that case, by the way, it says his mother, does not call her the queen mother in that case, but it does talk about his mother. But now watch verse 15 in the same chapter. He carried Jehoiachin captive to Babylon, the king's mother, the king's wives, his officers, and the mighty of the land he carried into captivity from Jerusalem to Babylon. By the way, that verse probably is where you get Daniel going to Babylon. That's probably what that is. Right now we're focused on the mother, but interesting. And then one more, Jeremiah 13, well, really two. Jeremiah chapter 13, we'll find Jeremiah dealing with much the same idea in reference to the queen. Jeremiah chapter 13, verse 18. So say to the king and to the queen mother, humble yourselves, sit down, for your rule shall collapse the crown of your glory. All right, queen mother again. And then one more time, Jeremiah chapter 29, verse 2. Jeremiah chapter 29, verse 2. This happened after Jeconiah the king, the queen mother, the eunuchs, the princes of Judah and Jerusalem, the craftsmen and the smiths had departed from Jerusalem. Notice again, the queen mother. So probably when we say the queen, we're talking about the queen mother, or this could be the wife of Nebuchadnezzar, since his wives and concubines were present, according to verse 2. Now we calculated the years, and if he married a young woman before his death, then she could still be alive. So this might be Nebuchadnezzar's queen. Is it? Well, put that on your list. And I don't know if I've told this class, but when I was a little boy, I'm a highly curious person. I still am. I tell the people at the church building that I'm a 2-year-old. You know how 2-year-olds are constantly asking questions? That's me. I want to know why, I want to know who, I want to know how. I'll just ask you tons of questions. When I was a little boy, I used to sit beside Mr. Wilson in the worship services. And Mr. Wilson was 103 years old. My mother actually saved a painting that he did that he gave to her for me. And if I dug around, I might be able to find it. I don't know, but he did do that. Well, I'd sit with him, all the time. And every now and then I'd hear Mr. Wilson say to somebody, I'm going to put that on my list. And finally I said, Mr. Wilson, what's this list you're talking about? And he said, well, Gary, does your mama have one of those things that you put up on your refrigerator? It's held up there by magnets and it's got adding machine tape in it, and you write down what you're going to need at the grocery store? I said, yes, sir. My mom's got one of those and she uses it. He said, well, I've got one too. But he said, I don't write down the groceries that I need. I write down questions I want to ask when I get to heaven. So when I say put it on your list, I mean it just that way. Put it on your list. I've got brethren here now where I preach. I've been here over 13 years. And they say, I hope that you and I get to the pearly gates together, but I hope I'm ahead of you and not behind you. because I've got so many questions I want to ask. See, that's what they're thinking. Okay, well, who is this queen? You're going to have to ask when you get to heaven. I don't know for sure. I gave you two possibilities: Queen Mother, or maybe Nebuchadnezzar's wife. Possibility. Is that who it is? Well, I don't really know. She told him of Daniel, who had the spirit of the gods. Now, notice she uses gods plural. If Nebuchadnezzar was convinced that there was just one God, this queen is not. This queen still is a very much a polytheist. But she did say that Daniel is able to interpret the dream. She does know that. So she recognizes the power that God has given Daniel through inspiration. And again, I want to call to your notice that there are cases, and this is one of those, where people in the Bible who are not favorable, they may not be unfavorable, but they're not favorable toward Christianity or toward the God of heaven, and yet they will recognize something that the God of heaven did through somebody. So as I said, the Pharisees recognized the blind man was made to see. They saw it. They agreed with that. They couldn't even argue with it. Yeah, Chip.
Can't remember if you said or not. How much time do you think passed between chapter 4 and 5 here?
Well, I gave you that rundown. Go back to
Again,
go to the opening slide. Well, not the title slide, of course.
yes,
But you got he Nebuchadnezzar dies in 562 BC.
562.
Then you got evil Mordok rules for about 2 years, roughly. He dies in 560. Oh, well, really, he was assassinated, but whatever. Uh,
Gotcha.
he was
I have the
replaced.
notes here. I'm sorry.
Yeah, okay, that's all right. But so you're not looking that far down the road, in some ways. I mean, yeah, has some time passed? Yes, but a lot of time, not really. No, not a great deal of time. Uh, so he's able to interpret the dream and resolve the problems. Since the word father is of uncertain or vague origin, we really don't know the exact meaning. I don't believe he's an actual relative of any sort, but again, if you really want to know, you're going to have to put it on your list because I don't know the answer to that question. I cannot give it. Anything up till now from anybody?
Brother,
Yes.
this is David. So everything that happened in this chapter is just in one night, right? And
Yes.
it's historically when Babylon fall.
Correct.
Okay,
Exactly.
okay.
Yes. And we're going to see more about that in a minute. Yes, you're on track, David. You're right where you need to be in your thinking. Okay. So start at verse 13. Now watch how Daniel talks in this. It's very interesting. At least 5 times in this short speech to Daniel, Belshazzar used a personal pronoun. Watch him. So who's he? Does he remind you of Nebuchadnezzar? Let's wait and see if he does. Okay. Then Daniel was brought in before the king. The king spoke and said to Daniel, "Are you that Daniel who is one of the captives from Judah, whom my father the king brought from Judah? I have heard of you that the Spirit of God is in you, and that light and understanding and excellent wisdom are found in you. Now, the wise men, the astrologers, have been brought in before me that they should read this writing and make known to me its interpretation. But they could not give the interpretation of the thing. And I have heard of you, that you can give interpretations and explain enigmas. Now, if you can read the writing and make known to me its interpretation, You shall be clothed with purple, and have a chain of gold round your neck, and shall be the third ruler in the kingdom. You notice all the personal pronoun references. He's a lot like Nebuchadnezzar. When chapter 4, the story of chapter 4 opens up. I, me, my, that's the way they think about things. I don't know what it would be like to be the ruler of the greatest country in the world at a particular time. But apparently it makes you a bit egotistical or minimally self-centered. You're the only one that really matters, So I just noticed that as I read it. Now watch Daniel's response, because he has no regard for the king's gifts. Listen to it. Then Daniel answered and said before the king, let your gifts be for yourself, and give your rewards to another. Yet I will read the writing to the king and make known to him the interpretation. O king, now watch. The Most High God gave Nebuchadnezzar your father a kingdom and majesty and glory and honor. Please notice that. That is not the first time in this book that we see God gave. And I'll go beyond that. That's not the first time that we see in this book that God gave Nebuchadnezzar something. See, sometimes we get the impression that God only works in behalf of his own people. Well, that is true to some extent, but it's also could be viewed as false. God rules in the kingdom of men. Notice the word kingdom. We saw it in chapter 4. It's singular. As God looks at the world, it's one kingdom. Now, let's see. Mario, you and David are in Costa Rica. Is that correct? Yeah, okay. In our way of thinking, you got Costa Rica as a nation, the United States as a nation, right? God looks at it and he says, that's all my kingdom. I own it all. There's no Canada, there's no United States, there's no Mexico, there's no Costa Rica, there's no Nicaragua, there's no Guatemala. I rule it all. It's my kingdom. So does God give power to kings all over the world or to rulers? And the answer to that is yes. He does. Okay, very important to see that. Daniel knows it, and he notices it. Verse 19, and because of the majesty that he gave him, all peoples, nations, and languages trembled in fear before him. That sounds familiar. How many times did Nebuchadnezzar use that expression? Peoples, nations, languages. Now here's Daniel using that same expression. Whomever he wished, he executed. Whomever he wished, he kept alive. Whomever he wished, he set up, and whomever he wished, he put down. But when his heart was lifted up and his spirit was hardened in pride, this is chapter 4. That's exactly what he's referring to. He was deposed from his kingly throne, and they took his glory from him. I'll say, then he was driven from the sons of men. His heart was made like the beasts, and his dwelling was with the wild donkeys. They fed him with grass like oxen, and his body was wet with the dew of heaven, till he knew that the Most High God rules in the kingdom of men and appoints over it whomever he chooses. How many times have we already heard that? All right, now, I want you to remember, you're supposed to, if you've been thinking clearly and following what I'm saying, I've suggested that you set up 4 documents. Every time that you see God rules in the kingdom of men, every time, that is a statement of sovereignty. Every time. So if you're keeping those 4 pages or documents or however you're doing it, I'm old, I might do it on a sheet of paper. but whatever. Uh, if you're keeping that, you want to notice every time that it says God rules, that it says God set up, that it says God gave. It's over and over and over again in this book of Daniel. And we don't want to miss it. Okay, Daniel had no regard for the king's gifts, but he would make known the meaning of the writing. He noted that God gave Nebuchadnezzar a great kingdom and majesty, and he wielded power as he saw fit. That is, God gave him the power, and Nebuchadnezzar did what he pleased. That was part of Nebuchadnezzar's problem, by the way. He did what he pleased instead of doing what God pleased. And that's what he should have done, but it's not what he did do. Pride caused him to lose his throne and live like a beast until he acknowledged that God rules. That's the key of chapter 4, and in many ways, it's a key as well to our study today. Okay, I'm going to give all of us a 15-minute break. So we'll come back in 15 minutes and resume right here we're going to pick up with verse 22 and go forward from there.
Right. Thank you, brother.
Yes, sir. I'm going to set a timer.
Well, actually, brother, I don't know if you're gonna stand and do something else, but there's something that just comes to mind from this passage. You know, um, um, when I contemplated the sovereignty and the power of God through this passage, I just cannot um help but contemplate the how little really the glory of man is. Capricious and fleeting are the words that come to mind. I see wine, I see laughter, and I see that this man is willing to compromise, his kingdom up to, giving the third rank to just anyone that can satisfy um, that which is troubling him. So, another passage that comes to mind is probably Psalm 2. You remember how David said that the kings of the world get together and almost plan against the anointed one, but at the end, the Lord will laugh at them. So, really capricious and fleeting are the words that come to mind when I see man in the light of God's sovereignty. How small we are and how big we think, or how big the wicked man makes himself to be.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That is a thread that is undeniably there. And
Yes.
it's good to pick up on that because that's pretty much what we see in, as you say, in this chapter. It just jumps at us that
Right,
that's the way it is. So yeah, very, very good. What
right.
I'm hoping to do, if I can get on my problem, can I get on the LMS? That's going to be the big question.
If
And the
oh
reason I'm trying to do
yes,
that is I'm trying to give you all an outline that we'll look at uh, in just a minute. Well, when we get through with this chapter. Uh,
mhm.
so I'm not ignoring you. I'm trying to.
Sure. No, yeah, yeah, and I'm actually taking your time here, brother. But if you would like if I could help you in any way to access the LMS, maybe I could even help.
You may be able to. You probably don't have a United States cell phone, do you? A number, where I could text. Can I text to you or can I not?
Well, it depends. Would you do you have the WhatsApp app?
Oh, yeah, I do. I don't have it on my computer though. Yes, I do have that.
Well, okay. Can you maybe screen share?
Ooh,
You'll notice that on this platform there is this green button down the middle which says share. It has an arrow pointing upward. Do you see that? It should appear when you move your
oh yeah.
mouse slightly.
Yeah. If I do screen share, are you going to be able to make a screenshot of something I show you?
Yes.
Okay. Let me make one correction, one not correction, but let me open something back up
Sure. Sure.
so that I have it available to you to see.
Sure.
I hope. I think this is it.
You know, I'm young, but I'm not really that tech savvy, and old people just assume that I am, but I'm really just trying my best here.
Yeah, I get it. Believe me, I get it. Let's see if I can. All right. All right. Well, let's see. Yeah. Oh, okay. I'm gonna. Okay, I can't do. The reason I can't do screen shares is going to interrupt the uh,
The recording?
recording, and I don't want to do that. That's what
Oh,
my computer says. Again, I don't know.
yes.
Okay, just a second. Let's try something different. Uh, I got an idea.
Sure.
What if,
Please just please let me know if I can be of any help, brother.
yeah,
Okay.
I'm gonna get to just a second. Okay.
Sure thing.
Tell tell me your email address.
Sure thing. It is you allow me to write that down real quick so you'll see it on screen.
No, it's all right. Just tell it to me.
Okay, sure thing. So, do you see my name? It is Mario Brenes. So, my email address is brenesmario99 at
Okay.
gmail dot
Okay.
com.
All right. So spell out your last name. Let's start there.
Sure thing. Brenesmario.
Wait a minute. Slow down. You got ahead of me.
Actually, my apologies. You said my last name only. So
Yeah. B
B,
R E N E S.
good.
Now
Then
what?
Mario
All right.
at 99
99 at.
at Gmail. That is right.
All right. If I share this with you, can you get it on the LMS in the notes section or something for everybody?
I believe that only the administrator,
Ah,
meaning Dave, brother
okay.
Dave Domain, and
That's all right.
people with that authority can do it now. I'll see if I can screen share right now.
No, let me just a second. Let's go a different way.
Brother, do you happen to see the screen right now? And do you see how I'm sharing my screen to you?
uh,
Do
just a second. Uh, I probably will.
Okay, because on the Zoom platform, on the virtual classroom, let's say, I'm screen sharing right now so you can see how I'm able to show what I am seeing. So, if you were to share that material with me, I could share.
Okay.
that which you would send me.
All right.
But so my question is, are you able to
Yeah.
see
Yeah.
my screen right now?
Yes, I was. Okay. So now
Okay. Yes.
BRENESMARIO 99 @gmail.com.
Mm-hmm.
This is a sermon idea. Okay.
Sure.
Let's see if I got the. Yeah. Let me. Hello, Mr. Gunny. Nathan's dog has just come up beside me. Sorry.
Mm.
He's he's a good dog, but he's oh come on now. Oh yeah. All right. I am going to send this to you. Let's see if it gets through to you now.
Mm-hmm.
All right, it should be coming your way.
Yes, 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 sir. I got it.
All right. Get that to where later you can share it on your screen. We won't start with that, but we'll come to it. Put it that way.
Sure thing. Sure thing. Mm-hmm.
All right. I'm gonna get up and move around a little bit and come back.
I'll do two. Yes, brother. Okay.
Okay. The brand new is what, $27?
Oh, 27 on Fruit Loops, it's 34 on Rebel, and it's about the same on it, it's almost the same on, Amazon, because Home Haley is $40. Same one you.
If this is what he's gonna share a screen, but you'll be able to see it this way. I just need this back.
Go ahead, take it. Oh,
He's gonna share the screen. Mario's gonna help me out.
he's technological.
Huh?
It's Robert, it's just Robert.
No, he said he was
He's more technological.
He said, I don't know, but I don't, he said, I don't know technology. So I'll do it again.
Why, yeah. Or the, basic.
Take it with you.
Take it now.
Just
You
take it.
said, you said you need that back.
No, just for now, take it.
I need to say I can photocopy.
No, you can screenshot something to me if I need it.
Just take it. Screenshot, I take a picture.
Well, I don't mean take it. You send it to the by text if I need a particular character from
On PDF that you can download it.
No, I don't. Right now, don't even bother. Just keep it and know who it belongs to. Till I got it for
Robert C. Hampton.
Yeah,
I'll send it to him.
sure. If you can achieve that, let me know.
Yeah, we just have to go. That's have to make a 8-hour drive.
Robert C. Oh,
Yeah.
you can see it.
Now, he went down and said he'd see it. I just delivered it to him. Then the weather might destroy it. I brought you W.T. Hampton book, because I had it on packing. I didn't want to accidentally pack it. Cost a fortune, ship books.
Yeah, when you do that.
You try to ship it home.
Well, right now, you can hear while you're working. What if you can work on it?
I wish you was going to cruise.
Huh?
I wish you were going to freeze.
Yeah.
Hey Mario, wasn't you from the Philippines?
Absolutely.
What's that, my brother?
Wasn't you from the Philippines?
No, sir. No, sir. I'm from Costa Rica.
Costa Rica.
Yes,
What's
sir.
the temperature average during the winter there?
Well, I'll tell you what the problem with that is. I do Celsius.
Uh-huh.
So, okay, good. So please feel free to convert that on your
Yeah.
side. But on winter time, I'll tell you this, I live in a pretty unusual area of Costa Rica. Pretty up in the mountain, so it gets pretty cold. It can get around on a bad day, 10 Celsius.
It's about 50 degrees Fahrenheit.
Okay, which is nothing compared to what you have right now, right?
Well, this morning was about 9 degrees Fahrenheit.
Ah, mm,
It freezes at 32.
I see. I see, brother. Okay. Well, how about this? On a hot day, it'll be around 27 Celsius. So what you got?
About 80 Fahrenheit.
And how's that?
During our summers, we can hit 100 Fahrenheit
My,
easy.
my. Well,
Yeah.
my condolences then.
Yeah, we're definitely colder here where I'm at, way colder than we normally are. This don't happen but once every 10, 15 years or so.
Oh,
Where are you, Taylor?
Southwest Arkansas,
What town did you tell me?
Nashville.
Oh yeah, you did tell me. I forgot.
Down
Sorry.
below us, about an hour or so, they got hit a lot worse than we did up in northern Louisiana.
Yeah, and across the that's the
Yeah,
black belt of black dirt. That's the black
yeah,
belt.
yeah,
They
hit.
got hit. The Delta got hit big time.
Oh yeah, Tennessee got hit pretty good too.
Yeah, I've heard that. Okay, we're about ready to get back to it. If I can find everything that I closed here. I pulled it down small because Mario's going to help me maybe in a few minutes. We're going to try anyway. But first, uh, verse 22. Uh, so remember, God appoints whoever He chooses. That was verse 21. Verse 22. But you, his son Belshazzar, have not humbled your heart, although you knew all this. So there is a lesson for us there for the church today. And that is that the children need to learn the lessons that the adults learned. We need to be sure that we're passing along the Word of God and the lessons that we learn from it. Daniel says to this king, you should have known better. Whose fault is that? Why does he not know? Well, uh, partly it sounds like in this case he knew, but he didn't humble his heart. And that can happen. You can teach your children with truth, and they may not obey it anyway. But on the other hand, if we don't teach our children the truth, then shame on us, will be my answer to that. So he goes ahead. And you've lifted yourself up against the Lord of heaven. How did he do that? Well, he took the vessels that belonged to God's temple, God's house, because that's what it would be, God's dwelling place, and he used those in service to false gods. So thereby, Belshazzar put himself above the God of heaven, or tried to. They have brought the vessels of his house before you, and you and your lords, your wives, and your concubines have drunk wine from them. And you've praised the gods of silver and gold, bronze and iron, wood and stone, which you do not see or hear or know, and the God who holds your breath in his hand and owns all your ways you have not glorified. Does anybody else in biblical history talk about God and breath? Look to Acts chapter 17. This is Paul on Mars Hill, and here he is in the city of Athens, a city with 30,000 idols and only 10,000 people. He stands up in verse 22 of Acts 17. Then Paul stood in the midst of the Areopagus and said, Men of Athens, I perceive that in all things you are very religious. For as I was passing through and considering the objects of your worship, I even found an altar with this inscription, To the unknown God. Therefore, the one whom you worship without knowing, him I proclaim to you. God who made the world and everything in it, since he is Lord of heaven and earth, does not dwell in temples made with hands, nor is he worshipped with men's hands as though he needed anything, since he gives to all life, breath, and all things. Does that sound familiar? Yeah, Paul is almost quoting Daniel when you think about it. Of course, they're both delivering the message of God, so I'm not saying he had to quote Daniel, but he would have been familiar with it. And so he holds his breath in your hand and owns all your ways. You have not glorified. He's got you in his hand. He can open his hand for you and you can live, or he can close it and you're gone. That's kind of the message. But even knowing that, and he should have known it because of what happened to Nebuchadnezzar, knowing that, Belshazzar dishonored him anyway. And God doesn't take well to people who intentionally sin. You want to do an interesting study sometime, look at Exodus, or more particularly Leviticus especially, and tell me if you can find a single sacrifice for intentional sin. Not unintentional, there's plenty of sacrifices. Show me one for intentional sin. It's a little bit more difficult to consider that. Then the fingers of the hand were sent from him, and this writing was written. And this is the inscription that was written, Mene, Tekel, Upharsin. This is the interpretation of each word, Mene. God has numbered your kingdom and finished it. Now, whenever God repeats a word, and you'll see this in the New Testament as well, whenever God repeats a word, that double emphasis means this is it, it's going to happen. Mene. Daniel says that means God's numbered your kingdom and he's finished it. And you want to know how serious he is about it? He said it twice, just so you are sure to get it. Okay? All right, then he goes on. Tekel, you've been weighed in the balances and found wanting. Peres, your kingdom has been divided and given to the Medes and Persians. Then Belshazzar gave the command, and they clothed Daniel with purple and put a chain of gold around his neck, and made a proclamation concerning him that he should be third ruler in the kingdom. And Daniel ruled for about, maybe 12 hours? Daniel said, you can keep whatever you have. I don't want it. It's yours. But they did it anyway. So, Belshazzar not humbled himself before God. Instead of showing the ultimate disrespect by profaning the temple vessels of God Almighty. False gods have no senses at all. and we need to see that. Yeah, Chip, go ahead. Sorry, before I go too far.
Will you give us a little more information, background maybe on these vessels?
These will be the vessels that Solomon had made. That are the ones that are still remaining. We don't know how many of them remain because various kings would come in, they'd take gold out, you know. But these are the vessels they used in temple service.
Even
And they're,
David collects some of those, right?
I'm sorry.
Even David collects some of those. He prepares some for
He
the
had some
temple.
pre-made, yes, before he died. Yes, he did do that. That's a good point, David. Uh, he did do that. Yes, Obed.
Yeah, thank you very much for the information and for the presentation so far. We just have a few observations, and I would like to point you to verses 25 and 28 of chapter 5.
Okay.
So I am currently using the New King James version of the Bible, and I see the writing many tekel Upharsin. Is it Upharsin
Yes.
in verse 25? And then for the interpretation, starting from verse 26, I see from verse 28, Pires, P-E-R-E-S. I don't see Pires in 25. Is
No.
there any reason why that is?
Okay. I am not sure that I can tell you all about the why there. Let me just a second. I want to check something.
I was checking the Hebrew and are the same words.
Yeah.
Peras.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Look at your footnote. That's good. Thank you, David. You're right. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to ignore you. uh, okay. Look at your footnote, Obed. For verse 28, he says Aramaic paras
Yes.
is a consonant with Perez. They're what we're seeing as two different words because the way the interpreters wrote it out in this translation. In fact, it's like David said, it's the same word. It's just a different way to present it. And sometimes what you get is the Aramaic and the Hebrew, or you get two different things. David, did you say which one that was, or is that Aramaic and Hebrew? What, or it's just the same word in two different forms?
It says that it's Chaldee, origin of Chaldee, so probably has some Aramaic, and it comes from, let me see, from the Hebrew paras,
Okay.
and it's to
So,
break. Uh-huh.
okay, so we've got the Hebrew and we got the Chaldee, and that's why we're getting these. It's the same word in two different languages. Does that help, Obed?
Yes, so if I
Okay.
got you right, um, the inscription in verse 25 is written in Aramaic, and the interpretation in verse 28 is Hebrew. Is that correct?
Yeah, but wait a minute, Ernest. Go ahead, Ernest. Not okay. Let me be. I've got Ernest, but not the Ernest that I know very well. Go ahead, Ernest. I'm just getting to know you. Go ahead and say what you told me.
Oh, okay. So I'm saying that the uh, person is plural, and the one in verse 28 is the singular. So
Okay.
it's just using interchangeably. It's the same. One is plural, the other is singular.
Okay.
So it's the same.
He said in verse 25, that's the plural,
That's the plural.
and
Yes,
in
that's the
verse
plural.
28, it's singular. That's
Yes, the
that's
singular.
the only difference.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
that helps. Okay.
Thank you,
And
Ernest.
my second
You're
question,
welcome.
Go ahead.
yes, my second question, I'm just trying to figure out why this king, Belshazzar, just as the reading went, he knew all the deeds that his father Nebuchadnezzar had done, and how stubborn he was, and how God crushed him as a result of his stubbornness. Yet he did not humble himself, as the passage reads. I am trying to find out why people do that. Why um um uh, people are, I don't know, people know that they need to be humble, or they need to subject themselves under the authority of a supreme God, but they intentionally resist that. I really don't get the psychological um I don't know, background of the thinking of such people. Is it something that God actually makes them stubborn? Because it seems to me that this king had a perfect opportunity to avoid this disaster. But it also seems to me that he was bent on going against that. So I don't know why some people, despite they knowing what is right, choose to intentionally do what is wrong. Is there any help
Okay.
you can offer me?
All right. Let's do a couple of things. If everybody has will turn to if you look at the opening chapters of Genesis 1, 2, and 3, you see that God created man. Did he give him a choice? And the answer is pretty clear. He did give him a choice. He gives he gives two instructions really. One is man is to dress and to keep the garden. That's one instruction. But the second instruction includes not just an instruction, but if you do it, here's what will happen. If you violate this, this is what's going to happen. It's a covenant, effectively. A covenant includes promises and conditions. The covenant that God makes with man is you can stay in the garden, you can eat anything in here as long as you want to. That's the covenant. But there's a condition. As long as you do not eat the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. But that means man has a choice, doesn't it? All right. Now you might, and I've heard people ask this question: why did God give man a choice? Uh, Ernest in Philippines, you have children. Uh, unmute it. Well, the other Ernest does too. I can tell by the grin he's got children. Okay. Okay. All right. Ernest in the
Yeah,
Philippines, you have children, right?
I'm
Three
babysitting.
children.
Yeah, I have.
Three children. Okay. Uh, before those children were born, did you want them to be born healthy?
Course.
Okay. Healthy, first of all, means they got 5 fingers, 5 toes. It's physical, right? First of all.
That's
Is it
the first
also
thing that
meant?
would
Go ahead.
that was the first thing that would be apparent.
Yeah. All right. Did you want them to have a good mind, to be mentally healthy?
Yes, but that doesn't come. You don't know that till later.
Okay.
Sometimes much later.
All right. But here's my question, because your children are old enough, I believe you can answer this question. For them to be mentally healthy, they have to have the ability to choose. Have your children ever chosen things that you would rather they did not?
Of course.
Yeah. All right. You see what love does? You see that? Love wants to be loved by someone that has a choice. that they're not just physically healthy, they're mentally healthy. But when they have a choice, they can disappoint. They can hurt you even on occasion. I'm not going to ask Ernest that question. That's not relevant.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's not relevant. Yeah, well, it's just not relevant. So they have you love them. They have a choice. Okay, Nathan, don't slow me down too much. What you got?
Okay. Well, I was going to kind of continue on it. Oh, to answer Obed, I was raised in this man's house. Did he want me to follow? And I grew up hearing all the what God wants us to do. Why did I choose to follow the world? A lot of it boils down to the free will, but also I did it because I wanted to do it sometimes. And I had influences from friends that were not good friends and not good influences.
Okay, yeah, that kind of supports it. Now watch chapter 3, Genesis. And you remember the woman, she sees in verse 6 that this fruit is desirable for various reasons. And then look at the end of verse 6. All of verse 6. So when the woman saw the tree was good for food, that it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree desirable to make one wise, she took of its fruit and ate. She also gave to her husband with her, and he ate. Now, if I read that correctly, Adam was there when Eve was being tempted. Adam was right there. Did Adam know it was wrong? Look at 1 Timothy chapter 2. First Timothy chapter 2. And I want you to watch how this is written. Verse 14. And Adam was not deceived, but the woman being deceived fell into transgression. Obed, why did Adam do what he knew was going to cost him he was going to die? Why did he do that? Well, he had freedom of choice, and it's what he wanted to do. He did it. Now, we don't know all the other whys. I can't. There may be more to it than that. But that much I do know is that, so when, for example, in the book of Exodus, I see you, Chip. I'll grab you in just a second. In the book of Exodus, when it says God hardened Pharaoh's heart, I do not believe that means that God made Pharaoh do something bad. What I believe is this. Let's take let's take this time as an example. We'll take Chip. I know he's got a wife that he cares a lot for. The reason I know is in part because in previous classes she had some sort of a physical problem. I didn't even know what I don't even know if I ever knew what it was. He missed class to take her to the doctor to make sure she was taken care of. He loves her. Now, can I make Chip mad? Well, there's one way you could say yes, and one way you could say no. I can start talking bad things about his wife. And that Chip might say, "You made me mad." But the truth is, he's got control of his emotions. He doesn't have to, take a gun and shoot me because I said something about his wife. But he might do that. There's a sense in which I could say, I made Chip shoot me. But the reality is he made the choice.
Yeah.
So I started with the early chapters of Genesis because God made man. He wanted man to be able to love him. If you're going to love, you got to have free will. A robot loving me doesn't make a hill of beans worth of difference because I can program the robot. Well, I couldn't, but some people go. That you can program the robot to love you, but it's not voluntary. It's just what you programmed into it. The love that is really enjoyable and refreshing is a love that is by choice. Okay. I don't know if that helps you or not, but that's the way I view it. Now, Chip, I held you off.
No, I'm happy you said that because that was what I was thinking was when the Bible says that God hardened the Pharaoh's heart. Before we see that verse, we see the Pharaoh's heart before anything. He's puffed up with pride and he's arrogant, and God, in essence, allows him his thought. I thought that was very interesting because it's not necessarily that God made it that way. It's that he allowed that thought process that the Pharaoh had already to continue
Yeah.
into completion.
Effectively, what we've got is what Pharaoh did. You can say God made him, but he did it because he required him to do something he didn't want to do. He wasn't going to do. And so there are other verses that say Pharaoh hardened his heart, and both are true. God's demand, let my people go, hardened Pharaoh's heart. Why? Because Pharaoh wasn't willing to let him go. See, so that's what we're wrestling with. Go ahead, Mario.
Yes, thank you, brother. About Obed's question, the psychological implications of the sinner that doesn't want to humble himself before the Lord. I'm reading through the Gospel of John right now, and there is Jesus said something that is so interesting regarding Obed's question. And if you allow me to read real quick, John chapter 3, verses 19 through 21, it says, "Light has come into the world, but people loved darkness instead of light. Why? Because their deeds were evil." And this is the catch: everyone who does evil hates the light and will not come into the light for fear that their deeds will be
Mm.
exposed. So what I'm seeing here, and to make that connection with what you say, Brother Hampton, back in the Garden of Eden, man was given this choice to either bow down to the Lord or make himself God. You know, that's what Paul says in Romans 1: creation did not acknowledge the Creator. And I believe that psychologically, the sinner has to really get down and not only know that he has done something wrong, but as Paul says, that he has been wicked and he has not been good, and and that there is shame
Yeah.
in sin, and acknowledging that, no, sir, that ain't no comfortable place to be. I'd rather keep being the God of my own reality.
Yeah.
Something like
Okay.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I think the passage really helps because the reason I asked this question is sometimes I have interactions with friends of mine who do not believe in God, right? And the arrogance, or should I say, the confidence with which they make that proclamation that if indeed there is God in the afterlife, they don't really care. God can crush them, send them to hell, whatever. They still wouldn't bow down to such a God. So I sometimes find it difficult trying to process or trying to understand the psychological processes in their minds, whether they really understand the implications of their decisions or their choices. But I don't know. So that is why I brought this
No,
um this
that's a good
question. Yeah.
question. Let me throw something out to you, Obed. If you were to ask them, in private. Don't ever challenge somebody about things like this in public if you can avoid it. I mean, sometimes you can't avoid it. If it's a teacher or it's a public situation where you may have to in that circumstance. But in private, I would ask this question: do you know that there's no God? And if they answer, yes, I know, then guess what? That means they're God. Because you have to know everything to know there's no God. So you're God.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
that's
yeah.
right.
It's kind of a twisted way of thinking, but people say, "Well, I'm kind of twisted," but but that's what I see there. Okay, let's. False gods have no sense at all. I have given you numerous references to demonstrate that. Uh, and look, if you were to take these PowerPoints that I'm giving you for each chapter, yes, you could theoretically you could teach them. I've tried to give you plenty of information to do that. But also these open up the opportunity to preach. When you think about these false gods, they're senseless. They have no life. And that could be one of the points of your lesson as you discuss the God of heaven who knows, who sees, he knows. And by the way, you want to talk about seeing? Uh, it's interesting that that Hagar calls God the God who sees. I'm talking about the servant of Sarah. She calls him the God who sees. Bier laharoi. See, so she lays that out very clearly, and we need to. In this chapter, we're seeing a God who sees. So the living God sent a hand. That's what Daniel effectively is saying. And again, numbered means finished, wanting, he's deficient, particularly in moral worth, and his kingdom is divided, dissolved by a new kingdom. Now, I've already told you how that takes place. That is that the Persians come along and they see that the river flows under the wall. There's no way to go in normally. The river's too deep, especially for a guy that would be in military gear. You can imagine they'd probably drown trying to go in. But they cause the water to go off into. They lift up the gates and cause the water to go into the hanging gardens and things like that. Irrigation's what we call it in the United States. They open up the irrigation, the water level drops in the river, and they march under the wall, and that very night they defeat them. And so, verse 30 and 31, that very night Belshazzar, king of the Chaldeans, was slain, and Darius the Mede received the kingdom, being about 62 years old. Now, Darius is a Mede. Who's the conquering king? Cyrus. Darius is under him. He'll be called king in this area. But there's a greater king. I'm talking about physically now, okay? There's a greater king above him. That's Cyrus, the Persian. Darius is a Mede, and he's over the kingdom now. All right, does everybody follow this chapter?
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, Obed.
Yes, thank you very much. Another question I would like to seek clarification on is the constant theme of the book that says that God rules in the kingdom of men, emphasizing his sovereignty.
Mhm.
I sometimes grapple with this statement because sometimes you see in our contemporary world, you see some wicked leaders, right? Leaders who do not necessarily do good for their own people. They do all kinds of things to their people. But if we say, or if we are to go by this book that says God is the one who put all these leaders as heads of states to all these countries or all these nations. How then do you justify the goodness of God and the fact that God um, is a gracious God? So is God so wicked enough to put some of, for lack of a better phrase, to put these wicked leaders as heads over these nations? I don't know if my question is clear.
No, I think I get it. Have you read the book of Habakkuk?
I have read it but not studied it.
You need to study it because here is a prophet of God, a good man, and he opens up the first chapter. He opens up saying, "Why in the land of Judah do you let wicked people in Judah?" We're talking about their natives, they're God's people. Why do you let wicked people hurt the righteous people? And God responds. It's kind of an interchange between the prophet and God. God responds, he says, and I'm putting in my words, okay? I'm really boiling into my words. God says, don't worry about it. I've got it taken care of. I'm sending the Babylonians. And Habakkuk basically says, Lord, those people are worse than we are. They're wicked people. How can you do this? And then he says, I'm going to sit down up here on the top part of the wall of the city. And I'm going to watch and see what God will answer and how he corrects me. So don't take this offensively, Obed. You are Habakkuk. You're saying, how can you do this? Okay, listen to God's answer. And I'm putting my own words. I'm definitely boiling it down. But chapter 2 of Habakkuk, when it gets to God's answer, after Habakkuk says, I'm going to sit up here and wait and see how God's going to correct me. Then chapter 2 is, I've got that taken care of too. I'm going to make these people that treat all these other people in such a bad way, they're going to get treated the same way. I'm bringing them down. And actually, what we just studied today is how God does it. So, does God use wicked rulers to achieve good ends? The answer to that is yes. He used Babylon, a wicked nation, to force Judah into captivity because they had not been faithful to him. But Babylon took credit for everything they did. In other words, they didn't give God the credit. They said, "We did it. We're number one. We're the best." You know, that's their approach. And God says, "Let me show you who's the best." And down they go. So God uses wicked people to achieve his end. Now watch. That leads into Mario's going to share his screen with everybody. Okay? And this is an outline that I wrote. Before we go into this part, tonight now, your assignment is due. You need a lesson on the kingdom of God. It can be, Chip gave me a PowerPoint where he's going to teach class, I assume. Anyway, he gave me a PowerPoint. That's fine. Nathan gave me a manuscript. That's fine too. He's going to preach it as a sermon. Fine. I don't care. You can give me an outline. And I don't care how detailed the outline is as long as I can tell you really know what you're talking about. That's what I'm looking for. Because I don't teach like you teach. And I'll go another step. You don't teach like I do either. So that's okay. See, that's fine. So is everybody clear by midnight tonight? And that's midnight our time. So you guys in the Philippines can go till about what, noon tomorrow? Would that be about right, Ernest, roughly? No, I can't hear you.
Are you on Central Time or Eastern Time, Gary?
It's okay. It doesn't matter because if you do it at 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm not going to get up to find out. I'm on Central Time. Yes.
You're on Central Time. We are Central Time plus 14 hours.
Okay. Well, then you've got 14 hours past midnight to submit your lesson, you know. Okay. So I'm just telling everybody from right now, you've got not 24 hours because I get up about 6 o'clock. I could be looking at my email at 6 o'clock tomorrow morning, our time. So get your assignment in by then. I really, midnight is kind of an arbitrary. It's just saying get it in before I get up tomorrow morning. That's the point. Okay. So everybody's got that. You understand the assignment, right? Okay, Mario, show us your screen. So, because I'm going to pull up my stuff too.
Yes, brothers, please let me know if you can see this right now. So, are you able to see that?
Yeah, we
Everybody,
can see it. We
Affirmative.
can see it.
Yes?
Chip, you see it?
Yes, sir.
I see it.
Okay.
Obed, do you see it? Okay. All right. Now I worked this up to get ready for this class today. And you can see, I'm looking at chapter 1, and here's what I found in chapter 1. This is how I started this, really digging into this. In verse 2, and I'm going to come back to it in the outline. In verse 2, I highlighted the Lord gave. And then in verse 9, I highlighted God had brought. And in verse 17, I highlighted God gave. Now that's how I started the study. I titled it God at Work. Now you choose whatever title you like. But notice that the first point is God works through governments. Obed, this is your thing right here. God works through government. Listen to what it says, verse 2 in particular. You could, well, 1 and 2. In the 3rd year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came to Jerusalem and besieged it. And the Lord gave Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into his hand with some of the articles of the house of God, which he carried into the land of Shinar to the house of his God, and he brought the articles into the treasure house of his God. Point 1, God works through governments. What government did he work through? Nebuchadnezzar. Was Nebuchadnezzar and Babylon a good nation? The answer, according to Habakkuk, the answer is no. They were not a good nation. But God is achieving his end. Now, in Isaiah, and I'm not going to read all these, Isaiah 10, 5, and 6, you're going to see God's able to do that. In Proverbs 21:1, notice the king's heart is in the hand of the Lord. In Acts 17:26, he has made from one blood every nation of men to dwell on the face of the earth and has determined their pre-appointed times and boundaries of their dwellings. So God works. Does he work in kingdoms, through governments? The answer to that's yes. Number 2, God works through people. And notice in verse 3 through 6 tells what Daniel's in the control of Nebuchadnezzar, and he's put under the keeper of the eunuchs, he and Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. And then he said, verse 8 and 9, but Daniel purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with a portion of the king's delicacies, nor the wine which he drank. Therefore he requested of the chief of the eunuchs that he might not defile himself. Now God had brought Daniel into the favor and goodwill of the chief of the eunuchs. Can God work through people? Yes. This is the chief of the eunuchs. And Daniel was in good position with him. Well, then it goes on. By the way, in verses 10 through 14, I want you to notice something. Daniel gives this man a way that he can try this without jeopardizing his own life. Sometimes you've got to give people a chance. Give them a way they can do it without compromising their conscience. Now we're not talking about don't give up sin. That's not the point. But sometimes they have certain parameters that they work within. You need to give them an opening. Well, he gives them that. What happens? Daniel and his friends end up being fatter than everybody else. They look better than everybody. So God helps him get to where he doesn't have to defile himself. How does he do it? He worked through somebody else, worked through people. But then God works through giving wisdom. Now, if you prefer, you could say God can work through me, because it worked the same way. But notice verse 17. As for these four young men, God gave them knowledge and skill in all literature and wisdom, and Daniel had understanding in all visions and dreams. So God gave them wisdom, understanding. Now, how did that work out? Well, when the king examined them, they were the best, weren't they? And so they ended up in a high position. Now, watch. James in James chapter 1 says, if any man lacks wisdom, let him ask of God. Can we get wisdom just like Daniel did? Well, yes, in one sense of the word. Not miraculous wisdom, but we can have wisdom. And when that happens, what does it do? It opens the door to souls. Colossians 4:2-4, Paul says, pray for me that I'll have the right words to speak to these people. And then he says, also for you, be sure that your speech is grace seasoned with salt. Why? So people listen to you. And then 1 Peter 3:15, sanctify the Lord God in your heart. Be ready always to give an answer to every man that asketh you a reason of hope that's in you with meekness and fear. Do you see? God gives us the wisdom to know why we think we're going to heaven, why we know we're going to heaven, and he gives us the wisdom to approach people with meekness and fear so they'll listen to us. Do you see the lesson? Okay, I get a couple of head nods and the rest of you are going to sleep, I guess. I don't know. Obed, what you got?
Yes, just an observation. I don't know. This book at this point, from where we've studied from chapter 1 to this point, it makes me a bit. It makes me very confident as a Christian because I know whatever happens in the world, wherever I find myself, God's got me or He has my back. In as we will say today. But in another sense, it makes me feel that I think every government in this world should be reading the book of Daniel. They should understand this principle that I think if they have that knowledge, it would help them with their decisions because regardless of how you conduct yourself, God can still use you to achieve his ultimate purpose and he will come back and punish you if you didn't conduct yourself properly. So I don't know, but I think there should be sensitization of the nations to come back to some of these principles to understand that there is a sovereign um, being who overrules or who rules over all the nations. And I don't know. I think it makes me tremble for some of these leaders who take matters into their own hands or rule or govern in any way that they like. I don't know if you share that same sentiment.
Yeah, pretty much I do. We your kingdom, even today, I think is way more likely to continue to exist if you honor God.
Yeah.
We don't have that guarantee, and God may need to do something we're not expecting, but yeah, I wish all leaders would pay attention to Daniel and Joseph, who Chip talked about earlier. yeah, Pharaoh, learn from the Pharaoh and Belshazzar. They both made a terrible mistake. Learn, learn from them. All right, any questions or comments? I guess you can. Did everybody get that? Do you need that? Uh, somebody, we need to know. I need to figure out how to post this for you on notes or something. I'll see if I can learn. I haven't learned yet. Anybody have any questions? Mario, thank you for doing that. I guess you can stop screen sharing. There we go. All right.
Yes, sir.
Anybody? Any questions? All right. Tell me how class could be better. And you won't offend me. What can we do to make it better?
Do we have another watch after class today?
Yes. Yeah, just
Okay.
keep going. Count what number class we're on. Today was class number 5, I believe. Am I right? So you ought to be looking at video number 5. And I'm going to have to come up with some other things you can do, later. Maybe even including, I won't say yet. I may have audio for you that I've done on some of these ideas that we're dealing with. But for right now, keep doing David Spruill. I think he had, 10? I think he's got 10 videos. We've got 16 classes. He's got 10 videos. So you keep doing them one every time we have a class until you run out. That's a good question, Chip. Thank you. Anybody else?
Brother,
Yes.
I I was teaching Daniel wrestling in the congregation, and I had to study a lot, especially for the last chapters. And I noticed something that God what God intended to give a lesson or to punish his people, but he never left them uh, unattended, so to speak. It's like when happened that with Joseph. He put Joseph there for a reason, to keep his people. And after that, he did as well during the Medes, during the Assyria, all these people, Babylon. He had always somebody to take care of them in a good position. So Daniel, and we see all that, and it's great how he was working his his way to bring that seed, the special seed.
Yes, I agree with you. That's a great point to get out of the book of Daniel. And he never lets his people go. He doesn't mean he doesn't punish them, but he's always there. And we'll see a little bit more about that in the next chapter before we enter into what you were describing as the harder chapters, starting chapter 7. We'll get into some pretty deep stuff there. All right. Anybody else? All right. We're supposed to meet again on Wednesday, Lord willing. Looks like we're getting sunshine here, so maybe some of the ice is going to clear up, and we'll be better able to move around. Uh, Taylor, I hope you get some sunshine today. You need your cows need it. If you
Yeah,
don't,
yeah, it's sun shining right now.
good. All right, everybody good? All right, you all have a good rest of the day, and I'll look forward to seeing you Wednesday, Lord willing.
Thank you, brother. You too, and all of you brothers have a wonderful, blessed day. Bye bye.
Bye bye.